Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Glad to have you with us as we are about to talk some UFOs all night long. Josh Rutledge is here, and we're going to get into the UFO story and why it's so quiet recently. But the best part about tonight, I think Dirty Filth is going to join us as well. But the best part tonight is all about you. We got Race Fan in the gold medal position, Robert Lamoth with a silver, Frankie B with a bronze medal tonight, as we say hello next to Bar Madison. Paramarv is here. Paramarv will be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio, if you don't mind, to the left of the studio. All right, continuing on, Major Lee, good morning to you. Kitty Caddywhack, Lee the Bee, Karen in the Woo Train. Nice to see you all here. Mel WD-40 is here, lubing us up for tonight's show, because you always want to go into a show nice and smooth. You don't want any of that rigidness. Josh hates rigidness during a podcast/radio show. So he wants to be lubed up very, very well. Scrolling on down, we got Ethanol. We got Mama Catherine. I love you, my dear. Hope you're having a wonderful, wonderful night. And I hope you enjoy tonight's show. Digger Dog, how are you? Road Flare, what's happening, my man? Little Timmy James, how you doing, buddy? We'll see you in hour number 3. Eternity Eternal, good to have you here. Paul Demon, we're going to be normal tonight, right? Normal? Good. All right, number 17 in your program, starting at left wing from Stockholm, Sweden, Lars Jansson. Joanne, how are you? Nice to see you. And who else is next on our list? Big Dog, thank you for kicking off the super chat tonight. Really appreciate it. Love you, buddy. And, yeah, we are in good hands with Dirty Filth. That is for sure. And Dirty just popped in. That was that little beep you heard. Scrolling on down. Mike Bothwell, how are you? Gizmo, good to see you. Operation Shutdown. And JMJ12, nice to have you all here. Just another guy named Harry, good to have you back. Human Carl is here, a great veteran of the United States Air Force. Thank you for your service, Human Carl. We love you. All right, Thomas Rock, good to see you. As we continue on with our roll call, Richard Minnick is here. Hi, Richard. Hope you're having a good night. Hi, Nina Williams and Keith McCormick. Thanks for coming on in. Super Crazy is here as well. Marty Burback has arrived. Marty will be signing autographs after the show as well. Line up to the right of the studio, if you don't mind, to the right of the studio. Richard, thank you for adding in to the super chat tonight. We very much appreciate your love and support of Spaced Out Radio. Phil the Stalker, how you doing? Al Garay over on Twitch just did 150 sledgehammer swings in 3 minutes. His arms are jacked for tonight's show. Fapster, what's happening? How you doing? Good to see you. Scrolling on down, let's say hello next to Mystic Journeys. What's happening? How you doing? Good to see you, Mystic. All right, I'm Hardcore over on X. SJ, good to see you. Who's next? Walter Kochabinski. Thanks for coming on in. Cosmic Joe, how you doing? Xanos, nice to see you. Laura Elizabeth, can't wait to see you in Vegas. That's going to be fun. Scrolling on down, let's say hello to Bobbert. Kaz, welcome to SOR Chat. In the studio, nice to see you. And who's next on our list here? Oh, we're caught up. So far, so good. Oh, Mike, thank you for the super chat as well. Appreciate that. Good Canadian kid right there. Mike Bothwell. Let's get the radio side going. Hello and welcome to the radio and podcast side of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Always a pleasure to have you here as we talk UFOs with podcaster and researcher Josh Rutledge. And yeah, he's a good dude. You'll like him, I promise. I promise. We are in roll call on our YouTube side right now as people are slowly rolling on in. And 3 super chats right off the bat. Mike Bothwell, Richard Minnick, Big Dog. Appreciate the love, guys. It's a great way to support what we do on this show. And don't forget, you could get your Spaced Out Radio swag on our website. We do not have ugly swag, people. No ugly swag. I will be appearing April 4th through 6th at UFOCon 2025 in San Francisco, California. I would love for all of you to join me there. Come say hello. UFOCon2025.com is the website. I highly suggest you show up at this event. It is a great one. Ross Lambda, how you doing? Throw those horns up. Let's rock. Of Central British Columbia to you listening around the world. This, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I'm your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair at SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out Bumble, read the news wire, check out our site as well. You can follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Tonight's show is brought to you by Jive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Jive Charities today. You can find them on our website. Josh Rutledge is here. We're going to get into the entire UFO story and keep you updated after tonight. Man, there's not much going on real news, but there's a lot of hot topics that we need to discuss. We'll get into that. Then in hour number 3, Swamp Dweller will kick things off. Follow that up with Little Timmy James and the UFO report. Then it's Dave 101 night, along with the weird news of the week. Josh Rutledge is a multifaceted individual known for his involvement in both UFO research as well as podcasting. He has a background in spiritual development and has served as the vice president of spiritual development at Liberty University. I think that's him. No, that's not him. I apologize. I blame ChatGPT for that. In the realm of UFOs, Rutledge is considered great for his podcast, Mystical Experiences. Yeah. This is all over the place. What the hell am I reading here? I made a lot of errors here. I don't usually butcher an intro like that. And I feel bad because Josh is a good friend here. Oh, Josh, don't kick my ass too hard on this one, man. I'm just going to bring you in. Enough of the intro. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great, man. You know, and you got to pay for the paid ChatGPT in order to get the good stuff.
Oh, you know what, though? I usually read it over and it just sounded that first sentence. I made the mistake of just reading the first sentence and it sounded so good where I was just and paste, you know?
We know there's like 4 Josh Rutledges that.
Yeah. Stop having such a popular name.
Yeah,
like,
really.
You know what? As the professional radio host here, it is my job to say that this is not my fault, that it is your fault for having a popular name that gets mixed up and intertwined with others. So realistically, my butchering of your bio is your fault.
Well, and if I could shift the blame even more and say it's my mom's fault for naming me a popular name. You know what the most popular name for a boy in 1978 was? Joshua was the most popular name for a boy in 1978.
And
There
here
you
I
go.
thought it was going to be like filth, dirty filth. I thought that would be the popular name of 78.
It was 77, I think.
Oh man.
Missed it by 1 year.
You know what? Speaking of names, at least we were able to dodge all of those 90s, no 2000s, 2010s names where everybody was spelling an S with a Z or Z
Yeah.
and all the silly names that came out. You know, we dodged that.
We
Real-
did. So my name, my full name is Joshua Abraham. My mom was big religious at the time when she named me, and I dodged a bullet because my brother's name is Jedediah. So yeah.
Yeah, but you can cut that short to Jed, and that's a badass name.
That's what
It's
he hopes everybody thinks.
it's like our paranormal guy named Merle. We call him Merle. His name is Mike Morin. His middle name is Merle. But Merle sounds so much more badass considering you so many different. I mean, there's literally at least 1,200,000 Mikes and Michaels in North America alone. You know, you throw it to it's awesome.
Are there any Michaels that are spelled with 2 Y's?
No, but the thing was for a little while is instead of Michael, they were going EAL. That changed. Drives me nuts.
I'm sure there is an Mychael, and it's probably pronounced Mikhail as opposed to Michael.
Well, you could blame hockey for that, for bringing in the European players, spelling Michael Mikael or Mikal. You know.
By the way, fantastic conversation so far. I'm really enjoying it.
Oh, me too. Me too.
Yeah.
That's what I love about you, man. We can talk about anything and everything. And I do want to say to our listeners who are planning, and I don't know how many of you're all invited if you show up. Josh will be coming to our Las Vegas journey May 1st and 5th at the Orleans in Vegas. He's going to come hang out with us. And I'm excited to see you and meet you there, man.
Yeah, so am I. I mean, I'm assuming that from what I don't see on camera down is equally as handsome as what I see on camera.
No, not even close, my man. Not even close. But I tell you, I will not be cutting a rug. I'm not that guy, but I will be sitting back enjoying a drink, literally Pepsi or Coke, because I don't drink.
Yeah.
And probably $1 or $2 in a slot machine to relax. My poker game's been terrible.
Was that, I saw Dirty go like this. Was that relax? Is that where you were air quoting?
He likes to air quote. Dirty Filth is one of the best air quoters you will ever meet. It's true. It really is true. Let's get to some UFOs here, my friend.
Yeah.
Are you surprised that we're in the winter doldrums of UFOs lately? Because there isn't a lot coming out over the last few weeks, and there's really no news expected for the next couple weeks as well.
I mean, I think it's interesting because when you think about kind of the 24-hour news cycle, and maybe we're even less than that now with all the stuff that's happening with new administration in the U.S., that maybe it's good that UFO stuff is not in the newswire, because I feel like it would get overshadowed quickly. And people may not give it the necessary attention that it needs or deserves. So I'm kind of okay that things are kind of slow right now. I'm hoping that, with the new administration shakeup stuff, that stuff will start to calm down, and then maybe we'll start to see some more UFO related announcements coming out.
I hope so too, because there's a lot going on here behind the scenes. I know people are talking. I mean, everybody has kind of shifted from UFOs and /UAP to the psionics version of this. And I got to tell you, it picks my hide a little bit. It does. I'm feeling a little feisty tonight. So I hope you are too, because I think it's
Let's
going to
go
be
ahead. Let's get into it.
what's bugging me, Josh, is, and it has nothing to do with Jake Barber, the whistleblower coming out about psionics. Nothing to do about that. I'm glad he brought it up. I really am. But the way that the new ufology or upology has jumped on board with this, it's like they're thinking that he's the one who discovered it, that he's the
Mm,
one who is bringing this to light and attention, where people for 50 plus years have been
right.
talking about summoning UFOs or CE5 since the 90s. You know, I mean, it's been there. We've been doing it. And I think it's really insultive that really hasn't been a topic of conversation within ufology, saying, why are we making a big deal about Jake Barber summoning when people have been doing this? It's people have been summoning for years. What's your take on that?
Yeah. So I was also the same as you when it was like, oh, we've got this flashy new word for this thing we've been doing for 60 years. But then I thought about it and I was like, well, but maybe it's a matter of marketing and branding. Like the same thing that we are now, kind of adopting the use of UAP instead of UFO. Maybe there's some sort of a, kind of sexy, term with the use of psionics versus conscious contact or CE5, which I think Greer has patented CE5 or something now. But so maybe that's what it is. It's introducing a new term in hopes that it'll attract a new audience because they won't be kind of immediately turned off by hearing the old terminology.
And I can understand that thinking. I really do. But once again, we got a military guy, and for some reason, ufology never believes people like you and I,
Mhm.
or the great listeners listening to this show who have had these type of experiences. No, it's a military guy. He's come out and talk as a whistleblower. We have to believe him. And
Right.
once again, I don't say that as a shot to Jake Barber. I love the confirmation that
Mhm.
he is having with this. I love the fact that we have graduated from 2017 in the New York Times article to where we are today. Because when I was talking to people behind the scenes of the New York Times article, they were all like, man, we're not getting into this. We're not touching aliens. We're not touching UFOs. We're not touching any of that woo crap that will ruin everything, because the stigma of people having trippy experiences like that are going to be extremely hard for the public and the government officials to fathom. And yet here we are, just 8 years later. Your
Yeah.
thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, I do think, and I think I've said it a couple of times before on your show. I think we're in a slow disclosure rollout. And so it is a gradual increase, if you will, of the topic, the number of people involved that are saying the topic, that are talking about it. I mean, so my kids are both, I have twin 10-year-olds. And of course, they hear me all the time talk about UFOs as the topic and everything. But earlier today, I was going through some all sky footage that I have for my all sky camera that's mounted outside, and I came across a UAP that I caught in like 15 frames in this all sky camera. And I went through my normal debunking stuff trying to figure it out. It seems legitimate, so I was showing them. They just kind of didn't care, So I think it's not so much that they don't care; it's that it's not new to them anymore. Maybe it's just an ongoing effort to desensitize the people. Like they don't need to reach you and me and probably most of the folks that are listening to this call, right? Or to this show, because they we already know, right? There's nothing new that will come out that will shock us and say, aha, now I believe, right? Because we already know. The new people, though, the people who have been on the fence for 10 years or 20 years or whatever, or who are just now having their own experiences, that's who they need to get to kind of go along with, the notion and idea of disclosure. So that's where I think, again, it's kind of a rebranding of the whole topic in hopes that it will attract the newer, younger audience, which frankly have the most to gain with making the kind of significant changes that our space brothers and sisters have been talking about for 50 years. Your generation, my generation, the changes that we've tried to make, maybe some of them have been successful and maybe not. The new generations, though, those are the people that have to pick up the reins in a few years and carry the torch forward. Maybe those are the people that really need to start thinking about more than just their little community or their cliques or their workplace or even their country, and just really think about humanity as a whole.
I would hope so. I would love to be able to see that, for it to be a smooth transition in absolutely anything and everything that we hear and talk about on a daily basis. However, I think, even looking on X, and I know you don't follow X very closely because it is a cesspool of of people. Never mind the information of people. There are people who are starting to see the light that this government disclosure, which has been promised and talked about for a long time here, is starting to lose support. It's starting
Mm.
to lose its shine. And many people believe that it's just a big cover up, that disclosure is never going to happen, that they're changing their tune. And that's weird because, UFO Twitter was literally created by this new energy of ufology that started in 2017 and had a bunch of people, literally thousands of people, jump on the bandwagon immediately. And yet we're no further ahead. Yes, we've got more names. Yes, we've got more study going on and publicity, but we haven't really moved the ball forward.
I I would disagree. I think we've moved the ball forward significantly. I mean, to your point, 2017, the article comes out. We can't even hint at the notion that these might be non-human intelligence, right? 8 years later, that's all anybody talks about. You look at not just the Jake Barber interview, but the other interviews that Russ Coldhart did as it relates to the Jake Barber story. Every single one of those guys talked about non-human intelligence. I mean, we've moved the ball significantly in the eyes of mainstream media. I mean, ABC News, NBC News, MSNBC, they all have a section on their website now that's dedicated to the latest UFO news. Now, granted, they're not carrying any of the stuff that's happening on News Nation, and that's unfortunate, but they still have a dedicated area for it on a mainstream news media website. So I think we have moved the ball significantly. It may feel small because, again, we've talked about this before. I think people's understanding or what they expect disclosure to be is different from various other people. And so maybe to some people, they don't feel like this is disclosure. But I never, like I've said before, I never expected it ever to be a situation where the president of any country would do any type of, State of a Union type of address and come out and say, yep, we've been visited by ET for the last 60 years or 1,000 years or whatever the case may be. I do think, though, just like is the kind of the modus operandi for governments all over the world, is to put a lot of their larger projects into the hands of private companies. And so why not have disclosure be a private company led initiative?
I understand with what you're saying, and I appreciate that, and you are correct. It's going to sound like I'm backtracking a little bit here, but you are correct. The ball has moved forward, but I guess where I'm saying it hasn't moved forward is they really haven't provided evidence or proof. Now, I have stated many times on this show that I don't think it'll ever come out. They don't want it to come out. They're the people, the gatekeepers of this of this story do not want that information to come out, because it affects everything from the military industrial complex and what they're hiding to much, much more. And I could see the level of frustration that people are starting to have. When you get people who you're supposed to trust, like Lou Elizondo, making I'm going to call it a mistake, calling, that ceiling lamp a UFO mothership. Then you have the debate that Elizondo's own friends allegedly are throwing him under the bus for saying, after his book come out, saying he never ran a tip. I mean, there's a lot of drama going on. And that drama hurts the story.
Yeah, it does. But I also think that a lot of, I wonder how much of that drama is just a simple smoke and mirror, because those people who are spreading that drama are not ready, like you said, for the information to come out. Talking a little bit, about those Ross Coulthart interviews. He interviewed a guy who was a retired lieutenant colonel. I think it was Blitch was his last name. And this guy Blitch has had his own experiences that he's now realized going back to his childhood. But one of the things that he says is that he thinks that the reason that the government, the U.S. government specifically, does not want to disclose anything officially is because what they have in their crash retrieval is 0-point energy. And so to simply come out and even hint at the possibility of having that as a technology would globally destabilize the economy, because we would no longer be dependent on oil for energy, or coal, or nuclear power, or so on and so forth, if we knew that we could just pull it from the ether, all the energy we would ever need. So, in that regard, I can kind of see where, if that's a viable explanation, that the government does know about it, we have 0-point energy, and whether it be for global economic stabilization or, just good old-fashioned greed, they don't want to let the world know about these things. I can kind of see it. Again, thinking about all the way back to, the 1960s with the Brookings report, that came to the conclusion that people were not ready to know about the existence of life outside of the Earth. I can imagine that somebody would have put together then a plan for how do we get them willing to know, so we can gradually know. So maybe it's been not just a 8-year disclosure, maybe it's been a 78-year disclosure.
Is it a disclosure at all?
Well, again, that you have to get back to, how do you define disclosure, right? What is disclosure to you? And I don't think we'll ever, all of us, agree on what disclosure is. In my opinion, disclosure has already happened. It happened in 2017 with the New York Times article, and everything after it is just a continuation of disclosure.
I think you're correct. I think disclosure is more of a personal issue anyways, or a personal disclosure. Getting the facts is never going to fully happen. And I may sound a little fickle and a little bit obtuse on that, but I guess I'm one of the fed up people, Josh.
Yeah.
I'm one of the fed up people on trying to figure out what is going on, seeing the narrative, seeing the people who are giving the messages, who are being limited to whom they can speak with within the UFO media. I mean, you've seen that. We've talked about that loads of times. I guess I'm just getting a little bit fickle with it.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I've got a really good friend who was always interested in the topic of UAP, but he had his own experience a couple of years ago. And so it really thrust him into the topic, and he just, was consuming all the documentaries and everything else. And, we get together about maybe once a month and have lunch and stuff. And he'll tell me, like, I get burned out because all the documentaries are the same stuff regurgitated, and no one feels like they're really making any real progress.
Hold that thought. Josh Rutledge is our friend tonight. His website, mymysticmentor.com. I'll be right back with more Josh. Josh and UFO talk right after this. All right, we're clear, dude. Hi, gorgeous and amazing Kira. How are you? Who else just jumped in here? Parasolo, how you doing? Oh, man. Oh, don't call Fap a good man. That man would have no problem elbowing his mother for a shot at a three-pointer on a basketball court.
I must say, Dave, you have some of the best active live chat members.
Oh, yeah, they're great. They're okay.
Just
They're great.
great conversation, you know,
I mean,
going on in chat.
we gotta, every chat room has to have their weirdo. We call them Fap around here. But otherwise, they're good people. Warden Dragon, how you doing? Good to see you. Oh, and little Timmy James too. You can't trust him. SoCal, how you doing? Welcome to SOR chat. Oh gosh. I have a sciatica that's been bugging me for like a month.
Sorry to hear that.
It sucks, dude. It sucks.
Just, like sitting all the time bother you, or?
Oh yeah, like if you watch me during the show, I'm constantly moving.
I can send some Reiki your way if you gotta be interested to you.
Oh yeah, dude. Fire it this way. I never say
Right.
no. I never say no. Oh, Body Tech, good morning.
Now, when you're talking about
Go
when
ahead.
you're talking about the psionics program or whatever, I thought you were going to go to the the night vision camera. It's called the psionics.
I know.
It's spelled differently.
Yeah, that one's with a P, isn't it?
Well, no,
they spell it differently. It's like
they spell it. Yeah, theirs is like basically psychic onyx, I guess.
yeah.
Psionics.
We got just over a minute here, bud.
All right.
How old are your kids?
10.
Nice. My boy's 11.
They'll be 11 this year.
Yeah, he'll be 12 in June.
They're eating me out of house and home.
Oh, goodness. Growing like
Yeah.
weeds.
Yeah. Yeah. One is 5'3". They're not identical twins. So one is 5'3", and the other one's 4'6".
Oh, my.
It's quite the swing. It's like that movie Twins with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito.
That's funny. Hold on right there. Big thank you to Big Dog, Richard, Mike, and Gizmo for the super chats. Greatly appreciate it. We're coming back in 2 seconds. Here we go with the second half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you for tuning us in wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Reminder to all of you that if you miss portions of this show or others, check out our free archives on YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Josh Rutledge is here. His website, mymysticmentor.com. You can check it on out. We're talking about psionics and whether or not the UFO story is going to move forward. Josh, welcome back.
Thank you, Dave. And for all those listening, I am not the preacher. I'm not the baseball player. I'm the UFO guy.
He's a UFO guy, everybody. He's a UFO guy. That's what he is. Hey, quick question for you in regards to the whole psionic aspect. I think what people are getting a little bit fed up with in the UFO community is the fact that this has really turned into a government story now. It's not, prior, a number of years ago, ufology was very personal. It was a personal experience. It was being abducted, seeing a UFO, seeing an alien at your window, and today it's become so much more, centralized around government figures, whether it's Air Force or any of the military branches, or whether it's just positions in alphabet agencies or in Washington, D.C. Is that a benefit to our subject, or is this something that could see it change?
So I think it's still about personal experiences. I think it boils down to the perceived credibility of the witness. Thinking about it from I'm a field investigator for MUFON. So we get cases from all different types of people and we investigate those. And, one of the things that they kind of go over as a part of the training for a field investigator is knowing how to identify a credible witness. And, even this, gets within, police work and so on and so forth. And the whole idea that when you have a witness that has, specific type of training to maybe identify aircraft or, astronomical events or whatever, that somehow their testimony carries more weight than the average citizen's testimony, because the average citizen may not know that what they're actually seeing in the sky every night at the same time is Venus. And so I think that's where, again, thinking about it from how do we push the narrative forward with a new audience who we want to start thinking about this stuff, having quote unquote more credible witnesses is one way to do that. And so that's where I think military is oftentimes perceived as being one of the most credible type of witnesses out there because of the amount of training and such that they go through. Military pilots, I think, are probably the highest regarded credible witnesses, again, just because of all the training that they have to go through to identify things while they're out flying around. As far as will it change the message or the narrative, I don't think so. I think that for me anyway, to hear what is regarded as a more credible witness talk about something that I've been talking about for years or in my own experiences gives me, as the individual citizen, makes me a more credible witness just by the relationship in my experience and the more credible witnesses' experiences.
I agree with you from a MUFON point of view on that. I do. And it's logical, it's sensible. And, contrary to what MUFON board of directors believe, I'm actually a big fan of theirs. you know, yeah. I got told some good stuff, very good stuff about that, but that's for another show. The idea, though, that people who have had experiences are being pushed down a pedestal, okay, or pushed to the
Mhm.
side. Is that healthy though?
I don't. I guess I would ask, in all the detail that I've seen, let's say over the last 18 months, most of the news coverage has been on those military, again, those, excuse me, higher credibility witnesses. But just because the news coverage is on those people, I have not seen anything in the news coverage or in those individuals' testimony that throws shade at the average, citizen and their experiences. So, I mean, I guess the question, to maybe put it back to you, is: do you see that the narrative is doing that? That the narrative is somehow marginalizing the individual citizen and their experiences over, and replacing them with these military higher credibility
I
experiences?
think I think it is, and I think that's a great question that, I know behind the scenes, many of my phone calls that I've taken talking to insiders about this have agreed with that as well, is that there is just there's no substance to people like you or me having an experience. All we have is an experience. And for those who have actually had caught something on video or on camera, it's usually better than what the military gets us.
Mhm.
But I think the media has been playing it safe on this. Okay. And I think the media has a little bit to blame on it, because the mainstream that has taken up this topic, they haven't gone after, the Whitley Strieber's or the Travis
Mhm.
Waltons of the world. Okay. They've kept it tight, in trying to look credible in front of their mainstream audience who thinks this is still a fringe subject. And I think that the media really hasn't told the full story on that. Maybe they're not prepared to do that. I'm not too sure. But that being said, we do see a narrative being played, you know, prior to 2017, before all the whistleblowers and the government officials came out on this, you would see somebody like Stanton Friedman go on a podcast
Mhm.
that has 20 subscribers, but he'd also do Coast to Coast AM that night. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? It was about getting the message out. It was about talking to people had a vested interest in this subject. We don't get that anymore. We really don't.
So, do you think it's a matter of um, these newer whistleblower witnesses being exclusive in who they allow to tell their story? Or is it a matter of the people who are already in the UFO community, who have been for a long time, that they're pulling back or withdrawing who they're willing to talk to?
This is where the subject gets touchy, because I know there are people out there investigating this, okay, behind the scenes.
Mhm.
And they believe that there is a narrative going on, that there is a clique of YouTube channels and influencers who are getting preferential treatment because of their numbers on social media, that they have access to the Jake Barbers, to the Gary Andersons, to the David Grushes when he was actually speaking. And they are trying to put the puzzle piece together. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious when you see somebody who's been let loose and not really a part of that crowd, like Jason Sands, who was recently on this show. He's doing, a number of shows right now trying to get his message as a whistleblower coming out.
Mhm.
The other whistleblowers really publicly aren't speaking of him. You talk to Jason privately, he'll tell you, yeah, these guys, we talk quite a bit, and you have to take him at his word. Right. But
Yeah.
you just don't see the newbies of this world who are trying to become the faces of the franchise. Like, I believe Jake Barber has kind of overtaken Lou Elizondo, and that's step for
Mhm.
right now, at least, in the immediate uh, for the immediate story. But I do believe that he also hasn't integrated himself, whether by choice or by whoever may be controlling who he speaks to. I think it's very interesting to see how that plays out. That he's
Yeah.
not, and it's not just him. It's Tim Gallaudet. It's Blitch. It's many others who haven't made the opportunity to really bond with the UFO community. And I think that's rubbing people a long way. It's the same mistake. And I know I'm all over the board here with this answer, and I'm trying to get way too much out in too little terms. But I'm going to use an example here of something in a conversation that I personally had with Lou Elizondo a number of years ago. And this was off air. And, he pretty much admitted that one of the biggest mistakes the Stars Academy made was that they were asking for people to support them. They knew the UFO community was going to be the one to support them, yet they did nothing to be a part of the UFO community. They shunned the UFO community, except for their own hand-picked people who they relied on in order to get the story out. And that's where you saw people like, a great guy like Danny Silva come out of nowhere with the Silva record, a guy who's never even been a journalist before, and here he is talking to Jim Semivan and Elizondo and Hal Puthoff, and nobody else can get to them. Same thing with James Iandoli. They're great guys. This isn't personal. This is just pointing things out. Joe Mergia was another one, right? Came out of nowhere. And all of a sudden, here he was getting in big interviews. And there was a number of people. Tim McMillan of the Debrief, same way.
Mhm.
And we're all of us veterans of this field, we're like, we're trying to track these people down. We can't get them. How in the heck are these guys getting them?
Mhm.
And it's because Elizondo stated that the TTSA really didn't want anything to do with the UFO community. They bit the hand that fed them. And I see that happening now where you're getting YouTube influencers, whether it's Chris Ramsey, and I really like Chris. He's a good guy. Okay. Logan Paul, I've never met him, or Julian Dory, or Sean Ryan, or many of these other people with multi-million subscriber channels. They're getting all the information. They're the new mainstream media of
Mhm.
ufology, whereas even Coast to Coast AM doesn't get them outside of when George Knapp is hosting.
Right. So, um, I'm trying to think about, do you think it's a matter of, again, looking at it from a rebranding perspective, that they're trying to distance themselves from the history of the UFO topic, trying to, again, track that new audience? Or, and then, by the way, this is my last question. I'll let you get back to hosting your own show.
You know, right,
Okay. Or do you think it's a matter of almost like a capitalistic type of approach, where they're trying to corner the market and somehow with some new approach or technology, in hopes that they'll have the attention and the eye and the support of the community, even though they're kind of throwing shade on the community in the process.
I think that's part of it. I think that's a big part of it. And why wouldn't it be?
So it's kind of like because it's almost like we need. Let's just think about Spaceballs for a minute. So people need air to breathe, right? So whoever controls the air controls the people. It's a situation where we are so invested in disclosure that even though the people who have the potential to give it to us may be shunning us, we're going to support them regardless because they're going to potentially give us disclosure that we're so eagerly expecting.
That is the plausible answer right there. That is the answer right there. Is that we are stuck having these people speak for us when they have no intention of wanting to speak for us. And yet we're blindly many in the UFO community are blindly supporting them, because in their opinion, they're moving the ball forward. They're not trying to be a part of the UFO community. They're not trying to be one of us, so to speak, because they don't want to be labeled as somebody in the tinfoil hat community. That's my thinking of it. Or here's a possibility, and I will turn this question back to you. Do you think that maybe some of them have a handler who is telling them who they can and cannot speak to?
Oh, definitely. I definitely think that's the case. I think that, so I'll go back to, my newest podcast is just now getting started, but the one that I used to do with my good friend Stefan, at one point in time, we were, according to the podcast stats, we were in the top 10%, nowhere near Spaced Out Radio, but hey, not too bad for a podcast. When there's, 8 million podcasts in the world, top 10% is not bad. I reached out was trying to find, to get, and I'm totally going to blank on the guy's name right now. Oh my goodness. Anyways, I was trying to reach out and get somebody that was doing a lot of stuff on the History Channel, and I'm sure his name will come back to me in just a moment. But I reached out to the History Channel, gave them all of our numbers. They scoffed and said no. Back when Stephen Greer, one of his first newer documentaries, he made, this was a few years ago, he made the announcement that what he really wanted to get was if just 1% of the population would meditate on a regular basis, it would raise the vibration of the entire population and we would all be better off for it. Reached out to his people. Again, they scoffed at my numbers. So I do think, if it's true for those two, and I still can't think of the other guy's name, but if it's true for those two, I am sure that it's true for these guys, that they have people who are looking at the numbers of whatever the show is, and if they don't feel like it's worth their time, having those people attend or participate in that show, they're going to turn it down. I also think it's possible that they have a very specific narrative they want to stick to. So they are only interested in hosts that are willing to stick with a specific list of questions or topics. And so people like your show, where you really dig into and you want to do that kind of investigative journalism type show, that may be something that they're not willing to have those people participate in.
Well, that is a big reason. I know we have turned down guests in the past who've asked for preloaded questions. We don't do that. That's not fair to our audience.
Yeah.
It's just not fair. You can't do that. I mean, who are you? You're a ufologist. But here's the interesting part about it with 5 minutes to go. You look at everybody who has done very well financially in ufology. What do they all have in common?
They all wrote a book.
Majority. What do the majority have in common?
I mean, they all wrote a book and they all have been interviewed by a lot of different people. They've been on a lot of different programs.
And they all want nothing to do with ufology. You look at Greer, Dr. Stephen Greer.
Yeah.
Will he do an interview? Yes, he will. I'll give him that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Only if it's Billy Carson and it's preloaded questions, though.
Yes. But if you take Greer, you take Billy Carson, you take the Ancient Aliens crew, and many others who, I mean, even the paranormal people like Zach Bagans and others.
Yeah.
I think the Bigfoot shows are the only ones that will consistently go on podcasts or YouTube channels. But if you take the majority of ufology, the majority that are making money and charging big money for people and have millions of followers or hundreds of thousands of followers, they all want nothing to do with ufology. This entire new narrative of UFOs from the TTSA forward, the majority of them do not want anything to do with ufology. It is something that is very much in common.
So I wonder if it's also a matter of, and I'm trying to not, but we need them more than they need us, meaning that they're established in the UFO community. They don't need to come on a podcast or radio show to get their name out, to push their agenda, to express their theories, because they're going to be on the next History Channel show or the next A&E show or whatever the case may be. So in that way, they feel like almost like it's a favor to you to come on your show and do this thing for you, Dave, as opposed to, hey, I'm a down-to-earth dude that just wants to talk about UFOs, and I'm going to come on any show that invites me as long as I've got the time to do so. I think that's the bigger piece, is that they're detached from, like you said, they're detached from the community that got them to where they are.
They are detached. They're very detached. And I don't know if that's healthy for the community. Right? It doesn't bode well when you are biting the hand that feeds you.
Well, and if your heroes reject you, from a again community perspective, that can really make you feel like, who am I and why have I invested the last 30 years of my life researching this topic?
We got about just over 90 seconds to go, maybe 2 minutes to go here. The idea behind it, though, is controlling a narrative, controlling the threat narrative that we have seen played out for the last number of years. And that, to me, I think that's where they've padded the stats on their side. What is this threat narrative? And the minute it opened up to the mental aspect of everything, which is now, we call psionics, I think that changed the ball game. And that's where they were able to expand that a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. Again, I'll go back to the interview that with Lieutenant Colonel Glitch. He held up Lou Elizondo's book, and he said, the one thing I don't like about this book is the whole threat narrative, because these things are not here to hurt us. And on the one hand, he talked about being terrified during every time he was abducted, but on the other hand, he was also apparently told by one of the entities that abducted him that, he's just temporarily inhabiting this, the shell that we call our body, and that, they're going to poke around and stuff and see what's going on and see how they can help the body, what they can do for the body. But at the end of the day, the body doesn't matter, because the spirit, the soul, whatever, is only temporarily inhabiting. Like my friend Deb Shockey, I know she's been on the show a couple of times, Dave. She calls it a spacesuit. It's a spacesuit. It's how you interact with the physical world. So I think that it's almost like with the introduction of Jake Barber and this other crew, it's almost reversing that threat narrative.
It is.
had plagued for so long.
Josh, I hate to do it. I'm going to cut you off right there because we got another full hour with Josh Rutledge here coming up on Spaced Out Radio. We love it when Josh is here to talk UFOs with us. He's part of MUFON in Arizona. He is a podcaster, he's a researcher, and a good friend of Spaced Out Radio. This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott. All right, buddy, we're clear. We're going to turn it over
That
to...
one went fast.
Dude, that was so fast. I was so unprepared for you firing the questions back at me. I'm like, you jerk. You jerk. But they were great questions, by the way. I'll be right back.
What happens when your radio podcasts are on?
Right? Dirty Filth, it's all yours, bud. Don't forget to turn your mic on, Dirty. Do I have to unmute you? Are you muted? We can't hear you, Dirty.
I was looking for the mute button, but I don't have all those privileges, Dave. I can't see what's going on. Am I coming in loud and clear? Mostly clear? Semi-clear? Whatever. Whoops. Anyways. Not sure if anyone can hear me. Push the right button or not, but we're going to continue on with this drawing. So we got Carl, Stanton, and Alan. I need glasses. And they're playing some form of dice rolling game. Yeah, look at that. Put some nipples on those gray aliens. Can't have enough nipples. Duty complains when it's nipples, when it's gray aliens, but when some ladies showing her nipples, everyone's like, oh, jeez. Unless they're in Wreck Beach in Vancouver. Good gods. Some of those people shouldn't be doing that stuff. It's like, after a certain age, gravity starts taking over. You don't need to go to the beach anymore there, buddy boy. So, look at him. He's casting fireball anyways. Unbelievable. But you know what? That's what a good mage does. All else fails, he casts fireball. And tomorrow, the Dirty Filth and his compadres, the orchestra. 1 second here. Had to deliver a mega belch. But anyways, as I was saying, tomorrow, the nerds will be continuing on with the campaign. Thanks, boy. That's what we do usually on Fridays. It's cold out. Everybody gathers. We roll dice, tell stories, chuckle, and we have a great time. This dice over the table. I got to draw all of these dice. It's just unbelievable. So keep drawing these aliens over here. With Carl. He's the game master. He's got his pencil. Just wondering, why the hell are you going to cast fireball on top of your friends? But you know what? Sometimes you just got to cast a fireball spell on your friends. Look at how nice that turns out eventually. All the pencil. Or the inking, rather. Pencil drawings only go so far. You don't really see them on your side because I draw the cartoons before I get here. It's nice, really. That there, look at him pointing over. I was like, you're gonna shoot some fireballs at your teammates? Yeah. That's what they do. Damn nerds. Let's get extra perky nipple on that one side. You know what the best is when your dorky friends show up, get all their dorky gear. Yeah, an actual longsword. See, secret here is
All right.
not to. Hi, Dave.
Hi.
I'm rambling about all the nerds coming over to roll dice tomorrow and long swords and
Nice.
all that fun stuff.
Sounds
I had to sneak out a couple times earlier and give Blob some snacks.
all right, buddy.
Yeah, I'll go into no sparring mode.
Hug, okay? All right. Big thank you to Dirty Filth. Hi, Flat 6. Ian McFadden, how you doing? Good morning. Jessica S. And who else showed up here? Jerry Carter, good to see you. And thank you to our super chatters tonight. Ozzy Ange, Greg in Thailand, Shelly, Mike ×2, Kira, Gizmo, Richard, and Big Dog. Here we go with hour number 2, everybody. Here we go with hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. We always appreciate you listening in wherever you are on this beautiful planet. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Vecamulgence. Vecamulgence is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. We bring back podcaster, researcher, MUFON investigator Josh Rutledge is with us tonight. All things ufology, that's where we are heading, and that's where we will continue. And we were talking about the narrative. And Josh, I think you brought up a great point right before the break where you were talking about how the narrative has kind of shifted from the threat narrative to the communication narrative of these potential extraterrestrial contacts.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting too. For if anybody's gone and watched all the other interviews from Russ Coulthart, one of the guys, and I'm got his name here, Gary Baker. He's one of the guys that was brought on to interview about his experiences, but really, he's one of the other UAP recovery team members with Jake Barber. So he was really brought on to, as a character witness for Jake Barber. But as part of his conversation, he's talking about there was a computer hard drive retrieval thing that they had to do. And he talks about handing over the hard drives to Greer, Stephen Greer. For whatever reason, they had to go recover these Tough Book hard drives and give them to Stephen Greer. So it really makes me wonder how involved Stephen Greer is in the whole psionics mental aspect that Jake Barber and his team are kind of spinning up with Skywatcher. Because we know that Stephen Greer has really been a big proponent for the whole CE5 modality. And we know it's been around as a contact methodology for a long time, but I think he really tried to push that narrative forward of, go out in the field with some friends, do a psionics meditation or CE5, whatever we want to call it, and attract these things in. It just really makes me wonder what the connection there is with Greer.
Greer and Lou Elizondo have been bitter enemies through the majority of this process. Do we see a time where, now that we are kind of getting into how can we put it, into this phase of ufology, that maybe because of Jake Barber they're going to see eye to eye? Because Elizondo has been very, very open about his support about Barber and other whistleblowers coming out. Barber, obviously knows Greer, has talked to Greer, and could that be a common link?
It's very possible. I know that I remember reading somewhere or hearing it discussed that David Sheehan was involved with Elizondo as a part of kind of his legal defense, and when he was preparing to write his book and all this kind of stuff. So we know that David Sheehan has also been a big involved force for Stephen Greer. So the fact that they have a similar pivot point in contact individual makes me think that it's possible that they're going to begin to see eye and eye. Plus, I think Lou Elizondo came out with his book, and then he did some interviews talking about his book, but he's for the most part fell off, right? He's kind of disappeared. I haven't really seen any interviews that he's done recently or anything like that. So it makes me wonder if maybe the threat narrative, if whoever is kind of, let's assume for a moment that this is some sort of a privatized disclosure, and whoever's running this privatized disclosure on the back end saw that, hey, the threat narrative is no longer the good play. It's not getting the traction that we thought it was going to get. We need to pull back, reevaluate, step in Jake Barber, talking about the mental aspects, the psionics, the way he describes his emotional connection to the craft, the 8-gon. I don't know why he couldn't just call it an octagon, but whatever, the 8-gon that he picks up, and it transports. So shifting that mentality, that mindset to more of that emotional, mental, spiritual connection as opposed to the threat narrative. So maybe now, once that kind of takes hold, Elizondo will be, he'll guest appear with the Skywatchers and be a part of a psionics experience, and then he'll shift his narrative and he'll start talking about the mental and emotional and spiritual aspect of it, and try to move away from that threat narrative. Again, from a marketing perspective, trying to change the vision of the narrative, trying to move it away from these things are bad and scary to these things are here to help us. I could certainly see it playing out that way.
Do you believe Jake Barber? Do you believe his story about his communication?
I do. I'm a pretty good judge of people, and I also listen to my gut, my sixth sense or whatever, my psionics, as it will, as much as possible. And I just don't get the feeling that he's lying. I can't remember. I think it was, again, one of the other guys that Russ interviewed, the bald-headed guy. I can't remember his name, but he he made a point that I tend to agree with, is that Jake Barber has everything. He's a multi-million-dollar guy. He's got these businesses that he runs. Like, he has nothing to gain and everything to lose by coming forward. And so, not solely because of that, but that's definitely a big, check mark in the column of, do I believe what he has to say?
I believe Barber because, as someone who has done the same thing with the summoning, the emotions that he came through with, to me, were extremely genuine.
Yep, I agree.
Extremely genuine. And knowing that the way he described how it happened, just concentrating on an area in the sky and putting the communication out there, and all of a sudden starting to get results, and they were able to get it on film. I believe him. But on the flip side, I don't think they do themselves any favors when they come out last weekend and they do this psionics conference, which a lot of it was pre-recorded, and they take people out to show that they can do this. And where do they choose? One of the worst locations in the United States, at Palmdale, 29 Palms, where they're
Mhm.
testing secret craft all the time. Why? I mean, you live in Arizona. There's
Yeah.
a lot of open sky in Arizona, in New Mexico, in Utah, in the northern part of Texas. There's a lot of open sky there where they could have done it. What about the Midwest? Why not? If you want to capture a moment, why not go to Wyoming and Devil's Tower? Let's really set the tone.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see if you can get Richard Dreyfuss to show up too.
Exactly. But Palmdale, of all places, like, what are they thinking?
Yeah, I also think, well, so I think it probably is because, and I don't know that we know where the area where they did most of their recoveries. They called it a specific area. I can't think of what the name that they called it, but it was like the stretch or the field or something like that. It was like this big area of open desert space in California where they supposedly did most of their retrievals. So maybe the Palmdale area, 29 Palms was close to where they did most of the recoveries. So it would be more likely to experience something there because they had experienced things there before when doing their recoveries. Also, if you go and look at, I've got a website real quick. I'll tell you. If you go look at VFRmap.com, it pulls up. Basically, it's like the aviation. Like if you're a pilot, it shows you, where you can fly, where you can't fly, where the military areas of operation are, et cetera, et cetera. And if you pull up the one for the Palmdale and Palm Springs area, 29 Palms, excuse me, not Palm Springs. It's actually, there's, depending on where they were, right, within that general vicinity, they may not have been within an MOA. And so if that was the case, then the chance of it being a military aircraft decreases, provided, of course, when they're testing potentially reversed engineered UFOs, they only fly them in the MOA. So I don't know. I mean, I think there are some plausible explanations. We're not providing any of those plausible explanations as to why they chose that spot, but there are some plausible explanations as to why they chose it.
I would disagree with you on that.
Okay.
Because I think if I'm somebody thinking logically about where's a good place to hold this where we're not going to get any potential contamination of military or secret craft, I'm not choosing Nevada. I'm not choosing 29 Palms. I'm not choosing anything around Wright-Patterson Air Force Base or Dulce or Dugway or any place like that, any of the secret bases. Not doing it. If I'm wanting credibility from people, whether it's the media, whether it's influencers, whether it's the general public, there is no way that I am putting it in that area. That, to me, is just logic.
Now, okay, let me reverse it on you a little bit. Is that because they're those sites are preloaded in the UFO community as potentially being hotspots or reverse engineered craft hotspots?
I would say it's a combination. I would say it's a combination of hotspots. Plus, you don't know. See, the one thing we don't know in this entire conversation is what is ours and what is not ours. And if we can take to the bank that a place like Lockheed Skunk Works is 50 to 100 years ahead in flying technology than what we see today. That is something that we have to add into the equation.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what the thing that I would come back with is that um yes, I guess if you're making a statement of, do I believe that we've captured and reverse engineered craft, and we may have craft that could look like and fly like every other UFO UAP that we've seen, yeah, I think that we've probably done it. Although um, knowing how much we take advantage of advanced technology in military excursions, it really makes me think that we may not have reached that level. We may not have reached a confidence level to control these reverse engineer craft to the point where we're ready to put them into a war arena or a military arena. But also, doing the investigations for MUFON, something that I've learned again on that VFR map is that there are military operational areas all over the country that even not near air bases that are set up specifically for military, Marines, Air Force, etc., for them to practice, for them to practice, night recoveries and things like that. So I don't even know if there would be an area in the West that would be clean from the possibility of having a military aircraft in the area.
It still adds to potential contamination.
Yeah, I agree. I think the only way to really, the only place that I've ever seen that an MOA does not cross into is tribal land. So I think that probably the only way to truly would be to see if you could work with Native American tribes and see if you could get an opportunity to go on tribal land and do your experiments on tribal land, because there's like I said, there's no military operations that are happening there. A lot of just commercial aircraft and such don't fly over those areas because they're fairly remote, at least in the West. So maybe that would have been something to think about it. Maybe that's maybe they'll eventually go to that length. But I also think that some of the behaviors of these crafts, again, not knowing, like you said, what's ours and what's theirs, I think you have to just err on the side of caution. And until you can prove it one way or the other, you just have to label it all as a UAP until you can definitively say this is ours versus this is theirs.
Josh Rutledge is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. We got about 6 minutes to go here before we have to get a break at the bottom of the hour. And I want to switch topics with you here because last few days, Nancy Mace came out and said, what do you want to see, first come out in the new conspiracy theory, exposure group, whatever you want to call it. I don't even know what it's called. I just think I like calling it a conspiracy theory group. But Nancy Mace does a little poll. What do you want to see come out first? Epstein files, JFK files, or UFOs/UAP? Epstein's list, which was very disappointing to start with, comes out, and that had garnered 86%. JFK and UFOs garnered about 7% each. Were you surprised by that?
No, because I think we've talked about this before. I think people are very much living in the how is my life going to change from day to day with all the stuff that's going on in the world. The Epstein files have the potential, depending on who's named in it, to change day-to-day life, as far as officials that maybe get arrested because of it, or at least maybe have significant political impacts because of it, whatever the case may be. Knowing the truth about UFOs, for most people, I don't think, even for those in the community, it would be, it would confirm for us, right, that we've been right all along. We'd be able to say, I told you so. But at the end of the day, our day-to-day lives are not going to be greatly impacted by that knowledge. I think probably the same with the JFK files is most people who think that that the government was involved in some way, shape, or form, or it's a cover up, again, would just be like, I told you so. But it wouldn't change anything for their day-to-day lives. So I think that's probably why it got a low vote score, is because, you're still going to, the news comes out tomorrow, the next day, you still got to go to work. You still got to pay taxes. You still got to pay your rent and buy your kids food and so on and so forth. I think the bigger question would be is maybe what comes after. So UFOs disclosure happens. The government says, "Yep, we've got them. We've had them for 50 years," or even if they lie and say they've only had them for 7 years. Then what? It's, okay, can we use the technology? Can we make our world better? Can we end poverty? Can we end constant wars all over the globe, so on and so forth? I think that's, if you had that on the list of, UFO disclosure / free energy, what kind of vote would that have garnered versus just UFO disclosure?
I'm going to throw another caveat. I agree with you, but I'm going to throw another caveat in there. People love drama.
Oh, yeah.
The Epstein list, the Diddy files, that is pure 100% drama. And the other thing that people love is they love a hero and they love watching the hero fall. And on both of those lists, there are going to be multiple heroes. And if the full names come out, those heroes are going to fall. Whether it's legends, political legends, musicians, actors, actresses, people of billionaire fame, they're going to come out and it's going to hurt a lot of people. And I think the public loves that. They want that. This is their daytime soap opera. I mean, we were just talking to Winnie Schrader about this last night, where, she on her true crime, and we were talking about the JFK files, and we got into this a little bit. People love a soap opera. Going back to when O.J. Simpson was the trial of the century, and people literally taking time off work just to hear testimony of 8 hours of testimony a day. And this went on for months and months, and people loved it. They were engulfed in it. They were committed to it. And I think that even though today's day and age, it's a lot different, I think people are still addicted to the drama. And they want to know, like in the Epstein list, is Bill Clinton's name on there? Is Hillary Clinton's name on there? Is Donald Trump's name on there? Is Obama's name on there? Is Bill Gates' name on there? Is Elon Musk's name on there? They want to go through the entire list to see those names. That way they could say, look, this guy is a pervert. This guy is a maniac. This guy is, has blood on his hands, or whatever it may be. They want that. They want to see it so bad. And UFOs doesn't cause drama. It does in our community.
Right.
But in the mainstream community, it doesn't fall into place.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And so in that context, I would say that depending on whose name might be on those files when they come out, I could see the UFO disclosure being used as a distraction for.
Hold right there. Right there. We're going to break. Josh Rutledge next.
Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott.
All right, we are clear. There's just a bunch of people that just came into the chat room. So I want to say a quick hello to Mitchell Darling, Warden Dragon, good to see you. Who else jumped in here? Stephen Finnegan, good morning to you. Let's see here. Human Carl, you're probably right. You're probably right. All right. Okay, we're caught up. We are caught up. There we go. I'll be right back. For some reason, the sun is still awake. Hold on. Do you want me to put me in the green room, or are you cool right there?
I'm cool.
Okay.
I did not go to the toilet, in case anybody was wondering.
Oh. You could just have, excuse me, could just have a piss jug handy.
Yeah.
No idea
I
why.
Hi, Dave. I had to go administer some snacks to the blob and the other cats. Apparently, they're starving. I do feed them 3 times a day, though. I promise.
Sure you do.
We free feed our cats. They just have access to food all the time.
Well, we feed the cats raw meat.
Ah,
So I
okay.
gotta go out there, and Dog Man brings over some raw meat for us, and Mrs. Filth chops it up. I got no heart for that kind of stuff.
What do you eat, Dirty?
I'm pretty good for butter chicken anytime. Dim sum on the weekends. Shumai, curry squid, sticky rice, pan fried pork dumpling.
You look like a dumpling kind.
Oh yeah, jumbo dim sum in Edmonton. Since we're going to plug jumbo dim sum, might as well plug my cartoons. If you go to filthy.com, you can go buy cartoons and roll my books. Second book's on the way. First book's there. It's a little bit late to buy a calendar, but you can buy a calendar if you want. Look at these. Look at my gremlin up here Gremlin's been a terror tonight. And Blob's in an extra snack, Dave, I promise.
Yeah. How's our blob doing?
She's old and she's bony now, Dave.
Yeah. She's older than you.
Oh, yeah, I know. 109 human years, apparently. Mrs. Filth and I mathed it out. Unbelievable. All right, everybody. Have a good night. Apparently, the gremlin needs more snacks. Terrible. Have a good night, folks.
All right. Big thank you tonight to Ozzy Ange, Big Dog, Greg in Thailand, Richard, Shelly, Mike times 2, Gizmo, and Kira. Very much appreciate the love and support. And don't forget, you can join us at UFOCon 2023. 2023, where the hell am I saying that? It's 2025. Go to UFOCon2025.com. Get your tickets for April 4th, 5th, and 6th. Here we go. Like 5 seconds. Here we go with the second half of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. We very much appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet. Reminder to all of you that if you missed portions of this show or others, you can check out our free archives on YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Here we go. Josh Rutledge, podcaster, researcher, MUFON investigator, all about UFOs tonight. We were talking about the Nancy Mace tweet that she putting out, what does the public want us to open up first? Epstein, JFK, UFOs a distant third? You're not surprised, Josh? I'm not surprised. How would that number get up? How can we build that number up?
If they already had released the Epstein files and they asked the poll again, maybe UFO would be higher.
Well, if it's any indication of what we saw today with the beginning, or what they're calling part 1 of the Epstein list of information, we're never getting UFOs, man. Never.
Well, maybe it'll be a slow Epstein disclosure as well. I don't know.
No.
I mean, I think that it is. I'm pleased that the topic and the taboo around it is beginning to be lifted. You know, it's a topic that in my regular daytime job I would have avoided talking about, you know, a couple of years ago, but now I casually mentioned it to someone at work at a work event. And then I've got people reaching out to me on work chat, asking me all kinds of questions. So, you know, I think that the taboo is it's pretty much going away. I've mentioned this before. They no longer play the X-Files theme song whenever they talk about a related story on, you know, local news and stuff. So I think that it's going away. It's just not I think for a lot of people, either they can't understand or think about what having that news, how it would help them, or they don't want to think about what having that news would cause them to think. Like, you know, a lot of people may not be ready to process the news of what it would mean to know that humans aren't the only intelligent life in the universe. I think that, you know, it's hubris for anybody to think that that's true, but it's one thing to kind of silently know that it's not true, that we're the only thing, versus being told outright that that's the case. You know, how many, I don't want to go the route of, you know, would it challenge, you know, the world's religious beliefs, because I think that for the most part, the world is starting to swing maybe to be more spiritual and not so much religious. But I do think it would challenge, you know, people that are not quite ready to think about the bigger picture. You know, they've always known that the bigger picture is out there, but they're just not ready to look at it. They're not ready to pull back the curtain and see what's there.
That's the big one. Is the public ready? Let's get to some audience questions here for you. Start off with Mike Bothwell. What's your favorite alien movie?
I would have to pick two, if I'm allowed to pick two.
You can pick two.
I would say The Day the Earth Stood Still, because I think it's really a testament to, you know, the choices that humanity has to make. And then secondarily, I would say Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
My number one is Close Encounters. That would be my number one. And I think everything else is a distant second.
Yeah.
And then
I don't like
Flight of the Navigator.
Oh, yeah. The Disney movie from the
80s.
That I always wanted to be like, you know, find the navigator, like and fly it around and stuff.
Let's go to another question here. Paramarv is asking, as a MUFON investigator, Josh, can you tell us a bit about the most interesting case you've personally been involved with?
Wow. Probably September or so of last year here in Arizona, got assigned a case down around the Tucson, Arizona area, with a woman who was seeing lights kind of around the same time every night. She sent some videos. They were pretty, you know, spectacular, the lights that were showing up on regular, you know, cell phone footage. Investigated, you know, there was no transponding air traffic in the area. Actually took some friends, drove down to the, you know, to where, close to where she was living. I saw the lights. They saw the lights. Another investigator here in Arizona proposed that they could be satellite flares. And even though there were satellites in the area, their magnitude was really low. But I was still a relatively new MUFON investigator, and so I took the advice of this more senior investigator and called it as a known man-made object. The very next night after I called it as this, the very next night, the lights didn't show up. Now, if they're satellite flares, there's no reason why they shouldn't show up that night. The weather conditions were the same. There was no cloud cover. They didn't show up. I contacted the lead investigator here in Arizona, told her I wanted to reopen the case and why. She allowed me to do so. I did some additional investigation, again, magnitudes and all that kind of stuff. Ultimately called it unknown. The day that I called it unknown, that same night, the light showed up again. That suggests an intelligence that knew that I had classified a case as known, and they were proving me wrong in hopes that I would reopen the case to classify it differently. I mean, that's the most amazing thing for what it suggests.
No kidding. No kidding. Was the person ever contacted by ET?
They did not think so. They didn't have any, you know, missing time or any of that kind of stuff. Nothing in their history, you know, had they been open to the possibility of UFOs and UAP, but they'd never had an experience prior to this one. Now, what's even, I think, more fascinating from that is I went to my good friend who lives here in northern Arizona, Shane Hurd, who is the Arizona assistant state director. Went to his ranch in northern Arizona and was sitting around the fire pit and decided to get up and walk to an area of his ranch and look in the general area where the lights were seen in Tucson. And they appeared for me in that same general area 100 miles away from where they had originally been seen. And they were seen every time I went out to Shane's ranch. We could stand out there and watch them and see them.
That is awesome. I love it when you get big sky. See, that would be a perfect area for Jake Barber.
Yeah. Jake, if you're watching this, contact me. I got some lights I want you to look at.
But don't you think? Wouldn't that be
Yeah.
smarter?
Yeah, I mean, it is a big sky. Now Phoenix is a really big city, so obviously there's a lot of light pollution that stretches, so I would say probably even somewhere like Sedona would probably be even better because there's nothing in Sedona and it's a certified dark city.
Oh man.
And you got the vortexes and energy portals and everything else in Sedona. So it's just all the right things.
What do you like about, as a MUFON investigator, covering the real cases that real people are having? Do you like the person who's an experiencer, or do you prefer somebody who has maybe never seen anything before and this has happened out of the blue?
I've had a little bit of both, and both have their own kind of a specific kind of flavor of excitement. Because I've talked with the people who have been, kind of lifetime experiences, or even have had within the last 2 or 3 years experiences. And after I do the MUFON investigation portion, once I kind of fill out the report and I'm good on that aspect, I always take time to then let them kind of talk to me about, what are their thoughts and theories and things like that. And I share with them information, kind of like what I do on here and on my own podcast and things, where I've researched other cases. Well, you might be interested in looking at so-and-so's book or watching such and such documentary. Again, with the idea that it's going to further their knowledge and understanding about their experiences. But on the other hand, the people who have never had anything happen, I've talked to people who have seen entities in their backyard. I've talked to people who, for the first time, saw a light in the sky that they couldn't explain. And sometimes they're a little scared, and so I always tell them that the best way to help remove that fear is to educate yourself. And so again, take it as an opportunity to say, check out this book, check out this documentary, watch this podcast episode, look up this person, look up this case. I send them emails with that information if they're open to receiving it, because the best way we arm ourselves is with knowledge.
That is very true. Very true. Arming yourself with knowledge on this subject can go a long, long way. When you are investigating, how do you tell if somebody's seen something real? Like, what are the clues you're looking for?
Well, I mean, I try to, my initial interview is, I'm not making that judgment. I'm listening to their experience. I'm listening to the energy that's in their voice, the way they're describing it, the way that they're explaining it to me. I'm taking all of that down, all of that in. I'm then going to my tools that I have as an investigator to try to rule out prosaic explanations. Was it an airplane, satellite, International Space Station, a star, so on and so forth? If all the prosaic explanations that are out there that we're aware of don't explain their experience, then, like, Sherlock Holmes or Conan Doyle said, whatever remains must be the truth. And so that's my approach. It's a very logical approach. Do I, once I do that from a MUFON case experience, expectation, once I've reached as an investigator that kind of logical approach, then my let's say friend in arms, experiencer, etc., comes into play. And I want to, again, help them kind of parse out what this information means to them, what they might consider doing to understand it more, how they might, think about tuning, maybe, for example, the settings on their camera so that it doesn't constantly go in and out of focus whenever they're trying to take a video, stuff like that. I want to help them rationalize for themselves what they've seen and what they've experienced.
Are more and more people getting abducted, or is it going down?
I don't know that I have information to be able to say definitively there. It does seem like there are more people who are willing to talk about their abductions, but I don't know if that necessarily lends to, that more and more abductions are happening. So I don't have good data to be able to say if they're going up or down.
And the people that I've talked to for the last little while here, it seems like they're almost going down. Like, not as many people are having as many encounters as they were previously in the last couple of years.
It's always, I think, interesting too, that as the conversation around the topic shifts, are more and more people just reframing their abduction as being, experience or contact. Where someone would have maybe before said, I was abducted and put on a cold slab and so on and so forth, the more people that, again, talk about their abduction in a different way, thinking about it in more of a positive light, even shifting from using the term abduction to using the term experience or contact or visitation, that more positive perspective on that aspect of the phenomena, maybe just that alone changes how many people were willing to say I was abducted versus I was visited.
Do you think that that's probably because of the amount of people discussing this topic now, that they're becoming more comfortable to come out?
I think it certainly, excuse me, it certainly helps that those other people who have been maybe suffering silently for a long time. It helps them feel confident or at least safe in talking to other people about their experiences. Again, I'll use the testimony or the interview with Lieutenant Colonel Glitch. He talks several times about he calls them abduction experiences, and he talks about how he was scared and frightened and he was paralyzed and everything else. But then after each one, he says he understands now, though, that they were just trying to help him, and that the way he processes it in the moment was that of fear. I think that anytime, we as humans want to feel like we're constantly in control of our own life, right? We want to feel like we're in the driver's seat. And so when you take a situation like what has been, attributed to abduction, where you're incapacitated and kind of a seemingly unwilling participant in an experiment or a visitation, it really challenges you to think about how you perceive your life and the control that you have over it. There's a whole idea of soul contracts, and that potentially you selected as a part of your experience in this lifetime these experiences of visitation, but that as humans, ultimately we're animals, and when we're put into a corner, we're going to respond and react. And so when things come into your room in the middle of the night and you're fast asleep, what's your first instinct? Is probably to jump up and punch whatever's trying to get to you. So they incapacitate us so that they're not in any danger. That's a possibility. And so again, thinking about it and reframing your visitation experience in a different way, maybe removing the anger and fear from it, and instead thinking about what it may mean to you as an individual, maybe that's caused more people to think about it differently and be more willing to discuss it and feel safe when they do.
That's a good point. 4 minutes ago, we got a couple more questions here for you from our audience. Paramarv is asking, when doing investigations, have you interacted with local law enforcement? And if so, what's their attitude like?
I have not had a case yet where I've had to interact with local law enforcement, but I do know others here in Arizona who have. It's really Shane's story to tell, but I'll tell you a little bit about it. He had a cattle mutilation case a couple of years ago, and he had to call the local sheriff and the wildlife people. I can't think of what they're called, but and they came out, and he explained to them what he was there for, and he was called out for a MUFON case, and he said they kind of gave him some funny looks, but they just did their job, and he did his, and everything moved on. I know of other people who have had to call local law enforcement. Drones, police drones are kind of a big thing in several parts of the Phoenix area. And so they could be attributed to a lot of sightings. And so, you always want to call local police departments, see did they have a police drone flying that night, things like that. Again, trying to rule out any prosaic information. If it ever gets to the point where I do have to engage local law enforcement, I think that I would. MUFON has been around for a long time. Their field investigators have been around for a long time. And so would I potentially get a law enforcement person that, scoffs at my question? It's possible. But I think more than likely, again, because of the age of the organization and also just the general taboo that's shifting on the topic, they're more likely to be helpful, in my opinion. Dave, I have a question for you.
I think they're opening up too. Like I know the RCMP in our area here, I know they have investigated some cattle mutilations. They keep quiet about it. They don't talk about it, but I know they're very open to the subject that there is something strange going on. Let's go over to Mike. In your opinion, what's on the dark side of the moon? We got 2 minutes left.
I mean, I've seen the pictures of the supposed, towers and structures and things like that. It's very possible. Certainly, if I didn't want the prying eyes of telescopes to see what I was doing, I would certainly build those structures on the dark side of the moon. But I know that we've also sent satellites and orbiters and things up that have taken pictures of the other side of the moon. And so, to me, it's more likely that whatever's there exists on the inside of the moon, that it's, either a hollow moon situation or it's lava tubes, and there's, cities within the massive lava tubes that are inside the moon from its formation. Think about all that, meteorites and things that have impacted the moon over the, years. It would be rather dangerous to build, any type of substantial, long-lasting structure on the surface of the moon. But under the moon, you'd be pretty protected. That's my opinion.
I still think there's something on the moon. That's why we haven't gone back. That's my opinion.
Did you see that they launched another orbiter that's going to land?
Of course.
Have you seen that live feed video?
I haven't seen the video yet, but I do plan on catching up to it.
Yeah.
We got 45 seconds to go here, Josh. And I want to say a big thank you for you once again coming back on Spaced Out Radio. We love having you here.
Thanks for having me, Dave.
You're always so much fun, my man. And, when there's a UFO update, that's what I love about having you here, is that we're always able to have that conversation and clear, concise. Do us a favor, 30 seconds, tell everybody where they can find your YouTube channel.
Yep. You can go to youtube.com/Mystic Journeys 44. It's at Mystic Journeys 44, or you can look up Mystic Journeys as the YouTube channel name itself. And then I've got a new podcast that I'm doing with Deb Shakti called Beyond Transcendence. It's on YouTube at that channel. It's also on Spotify and Amazon and Audible and things like that. I'm working on getting it on iTunes, but Apple's giving me a hard time about it. And then the last thing, if you want to work as a mentor, if you want to work with me, you go to mymysticmentor.com, shoot me an email. I'd love to work with you on figuring out whatever you want to do in life.
Josh Rutledge, everybody. Hour 3 is next.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott.
All right, buddy. We are clear. Sorry, I was all over the map tonight, man. Apologize.
Oh, you're all right.
For that.
I have a non-serious question for you.
Yeah.
Everybody always talks about, if ETs come out and we find out disclosure, we can get free energy. Is there any other thing that you would be looking for from, ETs to introduce to us?
Travel.
Just like around the globe, or
I would love to be able to see the Earth from in space. I think that would be amazing.
For me, I think it's I've never heard of anybody having a contact with an obese alien. So they must have figured out how to stay trim and slim. I would like to know the secret of intergalactic slimness.
Intergalactic dieting. That's what it is. All right, buddy. We'll let you go. Man. Take care. Bye-bye. Josh Rutledge, everybody. I'll be right back. right. We got a minute to go. Free Your Mind, how you doing? Thank you tonight to Ange from Australia, Greg from Thailand, Big Dog, Richard, Shelley, Mike times two, Gizmo, and Kira for the super chats. Greatly appreciate the love. And here we go in like 8 seconds. Here we go with the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. We always appreciate hearing your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet. Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Vacamulgence. Vacamulgence is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Let's head to the swamp.
Hello and welcome to Spaced Out Radio's Swamp. I'm Swamp Dweller, and tonight I'm going to take you on a mystic journey of the unknown, sharing tales of monsters, legends, and nightmares. Welcome to the Spaced Out Radio Swamp.
My story took place in 2007 in Haley, Idaho. I was there with a girl I had been with for several years. We were there in a motel just in town for a long summer weekend. Now, I was born and raised in Chicago, but I am an avid outdoorsman and hunter. I have lived in Utah since 1990. We were walking one night at sunset along a bike trail between these two small towns in Idaho. There was a wide area where the snowplows would dump their snow in the winter, so it was a very wide area of this particular trail. I had a black and tan bloodhound, and she had several beagles. It was near sunset, just when you can still make out shadows, but was getting kind of hard to see. It was then, as we walked and chatted, I heard that ungodly scream. I said, "What the heck was that?" It was then I looked toward the sound, and I could make out something stalking us as we walked along the trail. I realized it was a mountain lion, and he was about 150 yards to our right. As I saw him and realized what was about to go down, that's when the bloodhound just broke into all hell. He was baying and barking and pulling with all he had against the leash. I swore it was going to snap at any minute. The beagles were fixated on it as well. The big cat just walked along next to us, and there was no doubt the feeling that came over me. I was being stalked. Well, we stood there and watched for the longest time. Several full minutes for sure. The cat finally went into the brush. Then I watched as my dog's eyes followed him. It went down a creek bed and up the other side. Then it climbed up the side of the mountain until it was in the setting sun. His golden fur lit up as if it was on a spotlight. I found a ledge and sat down about 300 yards across from where we had seen it. I looked at my girlfriend and told her, "That cat's not afraid of these dogs. There is nothing that can save us if it wants to attack us." I told her we should get back to the truck where I had left my pistol. It was a good hike, probably about a half a mile. We made it to the truck and never saw the cat again. But I can truly say this, is that one of the only times I ever truly felt like I was being stalked. It was a creepy feeling. I hope you can enjoy this story, and I assure you it is a true story, even though it may not be the scariest one you've ever read. But thank you for sharing it if you do.
Thank you, Swamp Dweller, for another creepy story. If you want more just like that, head on over to YouTube, type in Swamp Dweller, He's got thousands of stories there right for you. Just hit subscribe, ring the bell. That's all we want in return. Let's go to the UFO report.
That is an interplanetary flying space saucer. You have made me very angry. Very angry indeed.
All right, let us say hello to little Timmy James in the UFO report as we continue on with a great show that we're having tonight, talking UFOs all night long. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, and you?
I'm a little worn out today, but that's okay.
I see. I was watching, obviously, during the evening, and somebody was up past their bedtime.
Yeah, the little guy decided. That's the problem with having a studio in your home is sometimes you could hear it, and yeah, had to go lay the smack down there and walk upstairs. It was one of those things where I walk out of the studio, I head upstairs, and he's all of a sudden doing the shuffle to get back into bed to pretend that he's
scramble,
and I'm like, dude, come on. Like, what are you doing? He's like, sorry, Dad. I'm like, do you have school tomorrow? He goes, yeah. I said, then maybe it's time to go to bed. Right?
Hey, love you.
Yeah. You're the best dad ever. I know.
Right on.
Here's the thing with my boy, and I know a lot of people brag about their kids, and I'll brag about my boy here for a second. He's a very smart boy. You know him. He's a very intelligent boy, and he gets good grades. So I let a lot of things probably like that slide a little too much, but his job is to go to school. He helps out around the house. He's just a good kid with good friends, and he's smart. And I hope that continues for a long time.
No doubt. No, I love him. He's a lot of fun.
Oh, he loves you, man. Loves you.
It beats me up all the time.
Yeah, me too. What do you got for us tonight?
Well, Freedom of Information request finally came through for after 5 years of waiting. So, Freedom of Information Act released emails that mentioned the alleged triangle UAP photo. Former UAP Task Force Director speaks out. So this was new today. So the long-rumored photograph in question gained significant attention following a December 2020 article by the Debrief, which described an extremely clear image of a large triangular object with rounded edges and white spherical lights in each corner. According to the article, the photograph was allegedly taken in 2019 by an FA-18 fighter pilot after the object emerged from the ocean and ascended vertically. The story quickly became one of the most talked about pieces of evidence that the Department of Defense was allegedly withholding, with references by public figures such as Luis Elizondo, which fueled widespread discussion across social media. The Freedom of Information Act released emails dated December 3rd and 4th of 2020 show internal communications within the Department of Defense discussing this article. In one email addressed to Susan Gao, her name is redacted in the to line, but not in the body of the email. Somebody, which the name was redacted, from the Deputy Chief of Naval Operations office states, Jay Stratton tells me the photo is part of the active investigation, so it would probably be withheld from release for that reason. The information, this email, which was conveyed to Gao in 2020 from Stratton himself, appeared to confirm the existence of the triangle UAP photograph. However, Stratton's recent statement in the Black Vault directly addresses this assumption. At the time of this email exchange, the story in the debrief and the claim of that an F-18 pilot had provided a photograph of a triangle emerging from the ocean, I was handling multiple cases. When asked about it, especially on an unclassified system, I was aware of what the debrief was reporting, while also managing other investigations, some of which could have been conflated with this claim. We had photographs from the FA-18 pilots, instances of the UAP that appeared triangular or pyramidical, and other unrelated cases. Given the circumstances, I was limited in what I could discuss at the time, Stratton explains. He also added, to prevent years of speculation and misrepresentation of emails taking out of context, I want to clarify explicitly no such photo was ever provided to us by an FA-18 pilot showing a triangle emerging from the water. This statement is simply meant to ensure accuracy on the specific detail, not to challenge or critique the debrief's reporting. So, Tim McMillan, the author of the original article, provided additional context. So, in 2020, the idea that the U.S. government was formally investigating UAP was still shocking. The information reported, including the description of some images, came from multiple sources with direct access to early UAPTF intelligence documents. I remain confident in the accuracy of the information shared. McMillan further elaborated that the early UAPTF intelligence reports were widely distributed among Department of Defense component branches, federal agencies, and allied intelligence services. According to McMillan, the sourcing for the Fast Movers article was robust, involving individuals who had no prior involvement in the UFO topic, but were stunned to see official government briefings on UAP. McMillan also added the information reported in the Fast Movers article, including the description of some images, early assessments, and interest in transmedium UAP came from multiple sources that had directly access to these early UAPTF intelligence documents. I'm sure a lot of people assume these sources were the usual UFO suspects. Example, Lou Elizondo and Chris Mellon, etc. However, that couldn't be further from the truth. In fact, I'm not even sure Mellon or Elizondo even knew about these intel documents prior to my article. That article had some expert sourcing. However, it all came from people who had no involvement or interest in UAP prior or since. They were primarily willing, but the first time they'd ever seen anything related to UFOs, UAPs being distributed through official channels, and they were all stunned. So, kind of an interesting, okay, bit of a Freedom of Information Act thing. And yeah, now that I found that kind of weird. Well, not weird, but I just was like, when I was reading, it was like, okay, so I was so busy that, okay, let's just make it clear. There was no photos handed in, but apparently there are other people saying that there was photos handed in. So who knows what to believe? It was just one of those, 5 years to get the information, and now we have conflicting sides of the story.
Here's one of the things I want to know, and it's, to me, one of the great mysteries of recent UApology.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, what's the beef between Lou Elizondo and Jay Stratton?
Oh,
They've, you know, Lou has talked very, very kindly of Jay, whereas Jay has denied Lou's actual position at the Pentagon. Jay's wife has gone online saying that Lou has never worked as a lead in ATIP. I mean, there seems to be a rift, a one-sided rift, publicly at least, between these two, and we kind of seem that Jay Stratton is contradicting Elizondo quite a bit.
Yeah.
And I find that very interesting. To me, I think it's a mystery. And, you know, somebody has to ask Lou that. Somebody has to, and maybe next time if we get him on the air again,
Mhm.
you know, we'll ask him that. Like, what's the beef between him and Jay Stratton? because there's a lot of contradiction happening between the two.
Yeah, and you're right. Like Lou does speak kindly of him, and well, Lou speaks usually pretty kindly of everybody except Greer, I would suspect. But even during the congressional hearings in November, when they were leaving, I don't know if you caught it. Stratton was walking down the hall, and he was behind. I think he was behind Lou, and he went to talk to Lou, and he kind of bumped into a lady to reach up and tap on Elizondo's shoulder, and Lou just kind of pulled away and kind of looked at him and kept walking. I was like, oh, those two are not happy with, or Lou's not happy with him. So yeah, you can definitely see it in the go through the reels and stuff like that. Yeah, it was like, whoa, not very friendly to each other, that's for sure.
No, I don't understand it.
Mm-mm.
I don't understand it, and Stratton is one of these guys where he's talking about UFOs, but he isn't talking publicly. Like, he's not doing interviews.
Mm.
Maybe he doesn't like to, maybe he doesn't want to, whatever it may be. But unfortunately, when you're out there, shooting salvos over someone's boat,
Yeah.
you need to be asked and you need to talk about it.
Yeah, 100% for sure. So
what else you got for us?
58 years coming up this year. I don't know if you heard of it, Dave. I'm sure you have. It's called the Ronnie Hill story. So a little boy out of North Carolina at the time. He was 14 years old in the summer of 1967. So basically, the study of the UFO phenomenon is at times a highly contradictory one. UFO enthusiasts will fight to their last breath to convince the world that a certain case, which has no physical evidence behind it, is absolutely true. Yet on other occasions, cases which have at least something physical to them are ignored. As, for instance, we have the case of the boy named Ronnie Hill, 14, from North Carolina. On a fine summer afternoon in July of 1967, he was playing in his family garden, apparently alone, when a strange scent filled the air. It was so bad that it made his eyes start to tear up. He became suddenly concerned that this malodorous aroma had to do with the spaceship landing in a field nearby. Thinking, thinking, and quite rightly, that no one would believe him if he told them he'd seen a flying saucer, he ran inside and grabbed a portable Kodak camera. So, returning to the scene, Ronnie saw that the spaceship, a spherical white thing that he estimated to be about 9 feet in diameter, had indeed come to rest on the nearby field. Ominously, from behind the craft stepped a creature clad in a shiny silver suit with spindly thin legs and an oversized gnome head. It carried a black object that it inserted into the ground, withdrew, and then returned to his ship, which departed for points unknown. In the ship's wake, Ronnie could smell something similar to propane gas. But the thing that scared him the most was that this whole nightmare scene played out in absolute dead total silence. No birds chirping, remind you of anything, and no insects whirring, no nothing. At first glance, this is sort of an alien encounter that occurs every day. Well, supposedly occurs every day. Fodder perhaps for the tabloids? Not so, because Ronnie Hill, in a feat of either courage or total stuttering foolishness, snapped a picture of the space monster before he returned to his ship and departed for the stars. In, Intercontrivable proof that space aliens have appeared on Earth to kidnap her dirt and startle her children, perhaps not. There are several noteworthy things about the photograph, despite the fact that this is supposedly the holy grail of UFO enthusiasts, a genuine photograph of a space creature. Neither the negatives nor the photo itself have ever been inspected by a photography specialist. UFO enthusiasts send out dozens upon dozens of photos of quite clearly fake flying saucers every year, perhaps every month, for analysis. But this one has never been made it to the pile. Upon closer examination, aside from the space monster and his ship, there is nothing in the photograph that can be used for scale. No trees in the background, no houses, nothing. There are some vertical lines at the top and the bottom that suggest grass and trees, but we have nothing by which we can accurately judge the size of the creature. 10 feet tall, 2 inches tall, you'd have to be the judge. So the creature itself has either an enormous head or is wearing a strange hat. More interestingly, his legs seem to be more or less sharpened into points below the knee. In fact, his shins are invisible at some points, and there is a bright point and a dim line on the creature's right side that implies that it actually has two knees on both legs for a total of four. His left hand is not clearly apparent, and his right hand is hidden by a black object, which appears to be similar to a bowling ball. The point is, the photo is blurry enough and has poor enough contrast that one cannot even make out the monster in his entirety, much less determine if it is real or not real. The creature is supposedly 15 feet or so from the boy and appears to be looking right at him with glowing eyes. Why in the world did it allow the child to take a photo of him? It seems not to have noticed him at all. Maybe I'm just a jerk, but if I were involved in a clandestine soil napping operations on an alien world and someone spotted me, I, I'd, bump them off or at least scare them a little bit. But that's just me. The point is, the photograph itself leaves a lot to be desired, but UFO enthusiasts have championed weaker causes. Surely a 14-year-old boy whom teachers and parents describe as honest, decent type would be considered a highly reliable witness. Actually, not so much. The first thing that the young man did after obtaining his photograph was get a copyright on it to ensure that all profits from his selling of the photo would go to him.
Smart kid.
I know, right?
Smart kid.
Very good. And I did look at the photos and everything in there. I was like, okay, that's kind of cool if it's real. But is it like, yeah, there's nothing to give you any depth or bounce off to get a size from it. It's pretty different. And I mean, again, 67 and a compact or an Instamatic Polaroid. Again, technology, again, not that great at the time. So
It always makes me ask the question, if you had the smoking gun photo, would you release it?
I think I would, but it'd have to be obviously to the right people. And yeah, I would. There'd be some stipulations involved in releasing it, that's for sure. But yeah, have to pick the right people to do it.
See, I don't know if I would or not. I don't know if I would want to put not only myself but my family through that.
But
No,
a smoking gun photo. That's what everybody's.
You got to realize, I mean, we're almost 60 years past the Patterson Gimlin Bigfoot film.
Yeah.
And Bob Gimlin is still getting run through the wood chipper on that.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right.
I don't know if I would do that. I really don't. Tim,
yeah.
Always good to have you on Spaced Out Radio. Thank you for the abbreviated version of the UFO report.
Anytime.
Yeah, it's always good. Coming up next, Dave 101. The weird news of the week. We'll be right back.
This is Spaced Out Radio and your host, Dave Scott.
All right, we're clear.
Cool. Had a good day?
I had a good day.
Excellent.
Good. My chest is totally slowed down.
Oh, that's awesome. Good, good,
Yeah.
good. You're
Yeah.
definitely looking much better last night too, so I'm glad.
I was feeling better last night, as you know, but
Mhm.
today it was a good day, and kind of go from there. But you
Right
know,
on.
we'll see how it goes from there.
One day at a time, man. It's a step forward. That's perfect. Huh.
Thanks, Nell Carter.
Alrighty. Well, get ready to everybody for get off Dave's lawn. I love this part.
Oh yeah, it'll be fun.
Yeah.
It'll be
I like it when Dave goes on a rant.
yeah. I kind of got a topic tonight. I'm going
Oh,
to
even
stay
if you
with UFOs tonight.
yeah, you're pretty good at winging it too, so that's okay. That's all good. I'd always like seeing what you come up with.
I feel bad because I was like all over the map tonight with Josh, and I just couldn't gather a thought. And it's like,
Ye
come on,
No, you know what though?
because he's such a good, knowledgeable guy.
He is, but he also throws questions back. I love Josh. I love when he's on, but he's very good at getting a two-way conversation going when you're trying to run an interview, and it's I always like it. It's like, yeah, and he's very subtle at it, and the way he does it, he just yeah,
He's good.
it's pretty cool.
He's good.
Yeah, he is. He is. All right, buddy. I will leave you because I'm going to go sit down and I'm going to watch Dave 101. Good night, everybody. Hope you all enjoy your weekend. And yeah, we'll talk soon.
Hey, bye, little Timmy James.
See you later, little Davy Scott. That doesn't have the same ring. Good night, everybody.
See you, buddy. Tim James, everyone. He's a good dude. Probably brushes his teeth with Sensodyne. What horrible toothpaste that is. Does anybody use Aquafresh anymore? I haven't used Aquafresh in years. I'm a Crest guy. And the odd time I'll just mix it up and do a little Colgate. Maybe next time I go shopping, I'll actually get Aquafresh. Sensodyne tastes terrible. And it doesn't create that toothpaste lather in your mouth. It's like you're brushing with nothing. Can't stand it. Raven Haynes, how are you? Yeah, I think I'm going to try Aquafresh next. Oh, Arm & Hammer toothpaste. That stuff's horrible. Might as well brush your teeth with pumice rocks and soap. Get the same result. Oh, I'm anal about my teeth, man. I've had one cavity in like 28 years. Alex Sanchez, how you doing? Thank you tonight to Ozzy Ange, Big Dog, Mike times 2, Gizmo, Kira, Richard, Shelley, and Greg from Thailand. Appreciate your love and support with the super chats. Thank you to all our new subscribers. And we're going to get going in a few seconds. Here we go, the final half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight, a show that's flying on by. My name is Dave Stark. Thank you very much for tuning us in, wherever you are on this beautiful planet. We call Earth. Reminder to all of you that if you've missed most of this show or others, you can check out our free archives on YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. It's that time of the night, that time of the week, where I yell at all of you to get off my lawn. It's the Dave 101.
Open up the door, it's Dave! Who? Dave, D-A-V-E! What is this?
Dave's not here!
It's the Day 101.
I can see you're really upset about this. I honestly think you ought to sit down calmly, take a stress pill, and think things over.
Leave the killer! Yeah! Leave the killer!
It's a mess.
So a couple weeks ago, I get contacted by this guy out of Vancouver, literally asking if I knew where there were some spooky places here in BC. And I'm like, yeah, man, I got those places. I know what you're looking for. So in the last couple of weeks and chatting with my buddy Merle, we have been kind of going over the rights and wrongs of what our subjects cover on television. There's the talking heads of Ancient Aliens, where they're sitting in a studio and Giorgio Tsoukalos' hair always looks perfectly on point with Einstein's. You have the Bigfoot hunters, where everything that makes noise in the woods is obviously a Bigfoot. You have the ghost hunters, who have probably, 45, 50 shows out there. And yet they all do the same locations. They just rotate them year after year. So my question is, where'd all the good creativity go in paranormal television? Where'd it go? Recycled investigators, recycled locations. It's nauseating. We should be working on trying to find out some of the secrets to this. We should be looking at locations of small towns that really have some sort of spooky story to tell. Because that's one thing we all know, is that all of these small towns have some sort of legend that haunts them. Could be a demon walking down the streets from an old saloon. It could be a Sasquatch bugging people in a rural community. It could be the UFOs and aliens. It could be that they're in the middle of some sort of triangle, that weird things just happen. What intrigues me about paranormal supernatural television is when you see something different. Not going to a haunted location to figure out whether or not it's haunted. That does not make sense. It really doesn't. It's cookie cutter. Hey, we got a call from this location. It might be haunted. Let's go and find out. Well, caretaker, what's happening? Well, we have a ghost. His name is Bob. He likes to walk around with chains around his neck. He's been seen a few times. And there's a lady named Mary. She likes to get a little rambunctious at times, especially if you're in her lounge where she likes to read. Don't touch her books or she'll throw a book at you. They go there, they investigate, nothing happens. And the minute they get some sort of sound, what's the first thing they do? They turn the music up. Like, come on. Why are you turning the music up at the most important, critical moment of the show? But on reality, I've said this before during this show, and I'll say it again. We don't need any more Gettysburgs. We don't need Bobby Mackey's on Route 66. We don't need Waverly Hills. We don't need Alcatraz. We don't need the Alamo. We don't need the spots that we already know are haunted. Start telling us a story of intrigue. Captivate us, captivate your audience, captivate your listeners. Just like when we do this show, we're trying to captivate people to tune in. That's why all of you listening night after night after night are here, because we captivate you. I want that same captivation from television. I honestly have not done any watching of paranormal TV in probably 8-9 years, because it was always the same. It was always the same. Same locations, same people, different title of a show. Intrigue me. You know, I had fun last year when we went for a Vegas or a Reno fan party, when we went up to Virginia City. We did a ghost walk there. That intrigued me. Yes, it's been done by dozens of paranormal television shows, but it intrigued me to say that I was there. I saw it. It was fun. But the overall aspect of television is to captivate us. Not do the same thing after every show. It gets boring. It gets monotonous. Give me something new. As Poison sang in the 80s, give me something to believe in. Something to believe in. Give me something to believe in. Intrigue me. Put the chills down my spine. But we don't get that. It's all for entertainment, just like this show is about entertainment. But this is why I like Dave Schrader's shows when he goes on. He looks for that. He looks for those angles that are different than everybody else's, and that's why he's had success. Yes, I know money is tight in television production since the pandemic. Yes, I know TV shows are not getting the budgets they once had, and they got to do more with less. But that doesn't mean you have to stop using imagination, because imagination is free. And there are so many locations across North America alone that have incredible stories to tell, especially some of these towns that are turning into ghost towns. Wouldn't it be great to put something on record to show what is going on there? When's the last time you saw one of these shows track down an alleged time travel experience? When is the last time you saw one of these shows track down a ghost town in the middle of nowhere? Whether it's in Pennsylvania or whether it's where I am in British Columbia. They don't do it. They don't do it. Why don't they do it? Because there's no imagination. Sure, you could have all the amusement parks. You could have all of the rundown clown hotels. You could do, try and investigate something in Las Vegas, courtesy of the mob when they were running things. You could do all sorts of locations. I mean, battlefields in the U.S., they've all been done. And I'm not saying those aren't great locations or haunted locations, because they're amazing. They go there because they know the ghosts are there. But what about putting in a little bit of work? finding the stories that will intrigue people. It's not done. There are towns in the US and Canada that literally have a problem with allegedly alien abduction. There are towns in North America that have been haunted by something very evil. There are towns across North America and farmlands and farmers' yards and cabins in the woods that are tortured by the cryptid world like Sasquatch. Wouldn't it be fun to do those and see those on television instead? Now, a lot of people will say, well, is anybody tuning into television anymore? No, because it's the same thing on every channel. Numbers are going down. But as more and more people move to streaming, whether it's streaming like Netflix or Prime or Hulu, Tubi, even YouTube, the flair for the imagination is harder to find. Because everybody knows what formula works, and unfortunately, that's what they stick to. And we, as the viewing audience, get stuck with that. And after 22 years of the same type of programming, let's be honest, it's getting a little mediocre. You may not agree. You may totally agree. And that's okay. But when's the last time you binged watched a paranormal show? Do you remember the days of Paranormal State where they were all over the areas trying to figure out hauntings? And they had what seemed to be really weird, strange cases. Those were fantastic. Then along came Ghost Hunters and Ghost Hunters International, where the paranormal teams, led by Jason and Grant, would go into haunted locations to prove whether or not they're haunted. And if it wasn't haunted on that day, what did they say? Well, the location's not haunted. Last time I checked, you can't force a ghost to communicate. Doesn't work that way. But if they really want to start making money again in this type of programming, as paranormal television has kind of moved away to true crime, you have to be able to, 1, use your imagination. 2, tell us stories we've never heard before. 3, bring real people to get involved. 4, how about some new investigators that aren't cookie cutter, where all the guys look like they've spent 5 hours at the gym every day, and the ladies aren't as perky. Now, I'm not saying these people aren't smart. They're obviously good at what they do for the most part, but they all have that certain look. They all have that look of, being a chubby guy, I could say, they all have that look of the perfect body. Drives me nuts. I'm teasing on that part. But I want something different. They all talk the same. They all act the same. They all investigate the same. They all use the same gear. Unless you're hauling out a pearl drum set in the middle of the forest because, the one thing Sasquatch craves is a drum solo. But by far and wide, I'd love to watch paranormal television again. I would, if it would captivate me. So hopefully, if any producers are listening out there, any television executives, let's spruce it up a bit. Let's put Christmas lights on it and shine it up. Because what we have right now is not entertaining. It's the same thing we've been watching for 22 years. And we want, as a public, something different. And if you can't, that's why we go to YouTube. That's why we go to the streaming services. It's like every documentary of UFOs. If you ever go into a list of documentaries, say, prior to 2020, It's the same people saying the same stories, just with a different titled documentary. It's all the same. We want fresh. We want new. Let's bring it home. Here's the news.
As God is my witness, I thought turkeys could fly.
Ladies and gentlemen, here is the latest bulletin from the Intercontinental Radio News.
Loud noises! I am good at things. Fighting and reading the news.
It's time once again for Spaced Out Radio's Weird News of the Week.
All right, let's start off with a little golf because we need a sports report around here. Billy Horschel fired a 5 under 66 at the Cognizant Classic at Palm Beach Gardens, Florida. But as good as his score was on the golf course, his first round was a little bit different. Why? Well, he encountered an alligator on the course. And what did he do? He went to have a conversation with it. He was going nowhere good, Horschel's told reporters at the PG National Resort. The Grant, Florida native carded a par on number 6, 15th hole of the day. He then spotted a police officer unsuccessfully attempting to escort a gator away as he was making his trek to hole number 7. Horschel calmly walked towards the gator, which appeared to be close to 6 feet long. Not a big one, but big enough to hurt. Stretched out his arm, touching the roaming reptile with his club face. The gator then made a quick head snap toward the golfer before turning the other way. Horschel then followed the gator until it dropped off into a nearby pond. I saw the gator coming across, the golfer said. The cop who was walking with us walked over there and tried to shoo him, but he didn't have anything to touch him. I was 30 yards away and grabbed a club and pushed him away. Horschel made 4 birdies and an eagle with just 1 bogey over his first 18 holes. Currently tied for 14th. Yeah. Battling alligators on the golf course. You know what you don't do in Australia when your ball goes in the water? You don't go looking for it because a lot of the water hazards on golf courses have crocodiles and sharks in them. True story. Look it up. Look it up. I'm not playing golf in Australia. Here's another weird one. A theologist has questioned everything we know about the devil and hell, suggesting sinners may not burn for eternity. Jared Brock has spent years studying the nature of religious afterlife. He's even written a book on the matter titled A Devil Named Lucifer. And after rigorously analyzing pages of scripture in the Bible, he has gained a different understanding to most. He believes a common misconception of hell is that the devil breathes fire upon the souls that enter his fortress. But according to the final book of the New Testament, the book of Revelation, he doesn't. The passage in question is Revelation 12:15, which reads, "The serpent poured water like a river out of his mouth after the woman to sweep her away with a flood." While hell is also spoken about often in the Holy Book, there are up to 6 different places where the underside of the afterlife could be, according to the text. It is common knowledge among believers of the afterlife that if you fail to repent your sins, you'll be banished from heaven and sent down to hell for eternity. But Brock isn't too sure if that's correct, although he can't say for sure. He also questioned how hell has been formed, whether it is physical or just somewhere the souls of sinners are sent to. He says, are these physical? Are they spiritual? Are they forever? Are they for a limited period of time? And the answers to all of this is we just don't know. And that brings us up to the Beelzebub himself, good old Satan, the red-skinned horned demon, who is often depicted carrying a pitchfork with a goatee and at times hoofs. Kind of looks like my ex-mother-in-law. This is not one in the case, though, according to Brock, who explained that it isn't even supported by the scripture. He mentions, I think culture just got so obsessed with this idea of a little red devil on your shoulder haunting you at all times. In fact, he is adamant that Satan is not a physical being just like Jesus, but instead is spiritual and can appear in attractive forms to tempt people into sin. Brock explained there are 2 words in the Bible for the devil. One means accuser, and the other one means adversary. Nothing is saying the devil can't be in all places at all times. He's not omnipresent like God is. Christian faith also leads us to understand that Lucifer was banished from heaven and sent to hell with his demons. The book of Revelation 12:7-9 reads, "And war broke out in the heavens. Michael and his angels fought with the dragon, and the dragon and his angels fought. But they did not prevail, nor was a place found for them in heaven any longer. So the great dragon was cast out, the serpent of old, called the devil and Satan, who deceives the whole world. He was cast to earth, and his angels were cast out with him." Great. So literally what they're saying is earth is hell. Earth is hell. Guess we're living in hell right now, eh? All right, do we have time for one more? Maybe a quick one here. A United States father is desperately trying to get his young daughter's name changed after a bureaucratic mix-up means she's currently ineligible for health care. For most parents, naming their little one should be a culmination of weeks spent scouring baby books and looking for it. But for this Nebraska father, Jason Kilburn, his young daughter's name was proven to be an absolute nightmare for both parents and child. Born in 2022, Kilburn's daughter, called Caroline Elizabeth, but is listed in legal records as Unikite 13 Hotel. So how does a child end up with that on their birth certificate? According to Kilburn, the unusual moniker is a computer-generated name created during the complicated events of her birth. Yeah, Caroline was born in a neighboring state of Iowa and immediately placed into foster care after her birth. Kilburn, who had been in and out of a relationship with the child's mother, later learned of her existence and sought custody. The paperwork has screwed up, and her name Unite 13 Hotel. I don't want to change it too, because we say hello to Paul, rocking in the background with little brothers watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio. Rock is in and out of every single show. Get your horns up to the guitar, God itself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at work, at home, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, Hellcat, Facebook, Streamer, LinkedIn, Space Travelers Club, and on X. I know you're out there somewhere. Remember, this show is copyrighted by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us. Because together, my friend, make a mistake. We're watching. Mr. Bumblefoot. We need a favor. Take those home. Yes, the room train has docked for the night. And soon, my friends, we shall ride again. The seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, you got your order there too. Good night, everybody. Well, that's over. Good show. Good job, everybody. Good job. Way to go. All right. Feb 27, 25. Oh, thank you, buddy. That was a good show in Paranormal State. What do you guys think of that? Show me your comments. What do you guys think of that about Paranormal TV? Boring? Nice hat trick, by the way, Mike. Thank you. Boring? Are you still watching the way you did? There we go. Let's see what you guys have to say here. Oh, there we go. Boy, February flew by, eh? Vanessa says, I don't watch that stuff. I get my paranormal fix here with Merle. Lee is like, never really watched Ghost TV. Tim and his goatee used to watch that stuff before they discovered SOR. Thank you. Free your mind. Says, watch everything in YouTube now. Necessary dialogue. Cable costs too much. Mama Catherine, great show. We love you, Mama Catherine. She's so beautiful. Let's see. Mm-hmm. Mike watches YouTube. Hillbilly Herb, a good point here. Not a lot of teams have that awesome chemistry these days. I'd watch a new show, but it's all about having awesome, authentic investigators. True. Very cool. I don't watch. What was the one I didn't watch? It's one show I didn't watch because I didn't care for the star on it. Didn't care for it. It's one of the recent ones. Okay, what am I doing here? Right there. That's what I'm doing. Who's on the show tomorrow night? Juan Feria from Texas Space. We're going to be talking the science of UFOs tomorrow night. Why it's important we find out. That's going to be a good show. It's going to be real good. I think will be Juan's first real interview. There we go. 1 second here. All right. Is anybody else growing fickle with the UFO story in the UFO world? Oh, it's Ian's or Liam's birthday today. Happy 20th birthday, Liam. Wow, to be 20 again. How good would that be? Scary, actually, not knowing that I was a year and a bit before meeting my ex-wife. Oh. That's a powerful statement, Human Carl. I believe, so that's that. Don't really care if others do. Love it. That's why Human Carl is like, he's like having a beard of knowledge. My baby is turning 12 this year. No, I was out of sports radio by about 4 years when the riots happened in Vancouver. Probably. Major Lee. I'm a glower. All right, everybody. We're going to call it the night here on the show. Thank you for tuning us in. Juan Feria, our guest. He is an executive with Texas Space. We're going to talk UFOs and potential recovered materials. It'll be a fun show tomorrow night. Make sure you tune on in. We'd love to have you. And yeah, thank you tonight to Mike with a hat trick, Shelly, Richard, Big Dog, Greg in Thailand, Aussie Ange, Kira, and Gizmo for the super chats. Appreciate the love. And we will see you all tomorrow night, everybody. Thank you. Bye. I'm going now.
Stay healthy, my friend.
You too.
You need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.